So in what seems to be a break from the coverage of politics, with the election over and the new transition sort of making its way in, and the complaints or the celebrations of the people coming in and the people going out doing their things, we have what looks like essentially a spy novel playing in front of us, a murder mystery on TV, except it's live and in action and all over news coverage. And it's an issue where, depending on whose side you're on, and we don't know the full story on both sides, people are pulling for the assassin. They're pulling for the anti-hero, pulling for the guy who pulled the trigger, as the other guy is seen as a big bad. We'll go into explanation of that one. So let's start with the story that you probably have an idea what we're talking about. And it is the CEO of United Health. We're talking about the death, and we're calling it assassination because that is what it was, of Brian Thompson, the CEO of UnitedHealthcare. On December the 4th, this week, 3 days ago, he was fatally shot outside a New York Hilton Midtown Hotel in Manhattan, about 6:45 a.m., literally just in the morning as people are walking, getting ready for things. Thompson was en route to an investor meeting that morning, and authorities said the scrap was brazen, targeted, an act that was the assailant fleeing the scene on foot. He left on foot, jumped on an e-bike, went through an alley someplace. He is gone. Now, the suspect, which you see right here in a later picture, not the original picture they put out there, was this man here. He's in a light color hooded jacket. His face was covered at the time, and all surveillance early on had a covered face everywhere. He believed to have left New York City at this point via the Port Authority Plus terminal. Essentially, he got out of Dodge. He showed up in town 10 days earlier on a bus that started in Atlanta someplace, and he got on someplace, stayed in a hostel for 10 days. And the only reason I have this picture here is because he was flirting with the lady at the hostel there going forward. Every place else, for the full week he was in town, 10 days in town, he walked around with a mask on. They had a picture of him at Starbucks right before this thing happened with the mask over his face. So the only reason I have a picture of a face, a smile, if you will, is because someone just wanted to kind of first say, hey, you probably got a nice smile in there. Can you show us? And he showed him, and they had security cameras inside the hostel going forward. It was a very brazen attack, as we said. He came in with a pistol, with a silencer, shot the guy in right in broad daylight, and went about his business. A lot of clues, a lot of things going about the story, including the words that many people in insurance agencies use to deny claims on the bullet casings, the silencer, which is really straight out of a spy novel where no one actually uses it. Everybody in New York said there's murders every day. No one uses a silencer. And the fact that he had a gun, had a jam in the one of the rounds, show that he had not used it before, probably something new. So there's a back and forth on whether he's a pro, whether he's an amateur, whether he is a hired hit, what's going on here. It all seems like it all was planned out very well. And we said that he came into town. He was inconspicuous other than walking around with a mask on his face, but it's kind of cold. And of course, he sneaked out one pretty much without incident. Police believe they'll find him. They have enough information from DNA, from a water bottle he left, from information from a backpack, even though he came with fake documents and no one knows who he is, they think he'll get him. Now, this is a very long introduction to get into what the real point of this story is. It's actually about the coverage of this incident. What happened after what happened is what we're talking about. Because many people, because the target was the CEO of the largest healthcare system in the nation, who has done a lot of people very dirty, very wrong in their healthcare, in their insurance, we're rooting for who should be the bad guy. Let me preface this off with, people should not murder people in the streets. People should not be shooting people with silencers. People should not be assassinating CEOs. But because of this assassination, because people have a weird eat the rich kind of mentality right now, even though our incoming president and his vice president are, millionaires and billionaires, CEOs of big companies are getting scared. They're scrubbing their websites of pictures of all their top people because this may spur on copycat issues, especially if there's the groundswell of what we're hearing from responses are what they are. Within a few hours of this happening inside of my social media feeds, people I know who've had issues with healthcare stuff started yelling at Brian Thompson, and not yelling, please get better, yelling, you deserved it. A whole lot of you deserved it, from people I know who had issues with their healthcare system. These are just 3 comments that we had from the responses I had from a TikTok video on this, which is just a clip of the actual report I did and the things you might not have heard. News story. One of them. Actually, we covered it 2 or 3 times. Since it happened 2 or 3 times, it updates to it. So these are some of the responses we have from that TikTok there. This guy is a hero. Bro said they say a hero can save us. I'm not going to wait. And seriously, I think no one will turn him in. I mean, he's a hero. He did something that, yeah, is bad, but the person that was targeted was worse. Just my opinion. Now, we're finding more information about Brian Thompson and him maybe being pretty a bad guy. Now, he's going through a divorce and there's a serious separation, so those issues are in there. I'm not sure how that works out. But there's also some issues behind the scenes where he was being investigated or they were looking into things about finances, whether they were personal finances that were being messed up or finances from the company that were being not quite as they should have been. There was some information going on, some things happening behind the scenes right now. So Brian Thompson, not an innocent man by any means, but did he deserve to be shot in the street by this man? And will we find this man? Because just like those comments, most of the comments in the thing basically said, that's not him. No, not like him. No, I don't see anything. That can't be him. When it probably is him. Now, the coverage is the thing we're talking about here. I listened to, and I say this a lot because I listened to Michael Smerconish, picked this up fairly late in the coverage, but he picked it up on the notion, on the thought process of people starting to cheer on the guy who shot the guy and hoping he got away. He had a lot of discussions about the healthcare system, what happened, and most of the callers basically called in after they got past initial, he's a hero, he should, this guy deserved it, called in to say, yeah, this is bad. Murder is bad. But here's how the healthcare system has robbed me of whatever. And people call in working in the system saying, yeah, this is bad. But the healthcare system is just like a casino. It's built to lose, built for the users, the people who are paying into it, the people who need it, to lose, to not get the best out of it. The healthcare system makes the most they can up front and then pay people out as little as possible to keep that profit, to make it happen. Just like your slot machines, they may be 98% loose, but for every dollar that comes in, they keep at least 2 cents of it. They never pay out officially everything that goes into it because they always keep a little bit of that one. The house always wins. And that's what works in insurance, apparently. So the coverage of what we dealt with is essentially how people are looking at this incident. Number one, a brazen crime in New York City. A person walks up somebody in the street. He's casing the guy, of course. He's waiting for him. He shoots him in broad daylight and walks away, escapes. Goes ghost, disappears. And they believe he got in the bus and he's now out of New York City again. There's the coverage of the finding of the man, all the bits and pieces that are there, more or less obvious, but you can't put them together. There's the fake ID. There's the backpack he walked in the park in and one he didn't leave with. There's all sorts of things going on. There's the smile to the person at the hostel. That is the only actual good picture we have of the man. And so people are hoping someone will turn the guy in. Not the greatest picture, but a picture. And how it's covered, how we're going to find this guy, if we can find this guy. And it even makes a hero out of Mayor of New York, Eric Adams, who's an old police officer, basically saying our guys are going to do what they're doing. This is old-fashioned shoe leather. This is how they do it. This is how it works. And there's the lack of coverage of Brian Thompson because we don't know full details, and the very, very detailed coverage of how people are blowing him away, pun intended, on the back end by all the complaints, all the commentary, just basically saying that Brian Thompson, as a CEO of UnitedHealthcare, is a terrible person and that healthcare CEOs need to watch their backs. Because that's what we're getting from this. That's the gist of what we're getting from these things is healthcare officials, big time CEOs need to start watching their backs. Will it be a rash of people walking up executioner style, taking out CEOs? Probably not, because there's a whole lot of work that went into this one. This was not just a random guy thinking a thought. He came into town 10 days early and was waiting for the stuff on a very public calendar for Thompson, who actually has security back home, but didn't bring much security for New York City. Some commentary said essentially what they do is when they're in a place like this, it costs a lot of money. It's a lot of hassle. It really is kind of a pain to do. And when you're back and forth, here and back from a hotel to a location where most things are secured and most things are there, it really is no big issue. No one's going to expect an attack from out of nowhere like this. And since this happened, we'll see how security gets beefed up. Security got beefed up all over for healthcare people and for CEOs of big corporations where people are kind of mad at them. That is what you expect. But what's going to happen with this one, with all the details and essentially the coverage that is the meanness of people And I'll say that it's easy to say that when you're behind a screen, anonymous for internet. I get a lot of mean things myself, and I just take them as they go. But the actual feelings, the emotion, the spilling of hearts, and just what's going on in people's minds as dealing with all these things. It's really, really, really interesting that so many people are not quite in condoning violence and murder, but are pretty happy the guy that got killed is who got killed. And that's where we are. That's one of the things we deal with a lot when we do stuff for a conversation project. And it's normally something on a massive kind of what's going on thing, on a political thing. Because if you've watched me before, you follow me along, you know my thoughts on the incoming President Donald J. Trump. I am praying for great things for him, and I'm definitely praying for lots of great content because I know I'm going to get that one. But as far as the policies he's already sorting of projecting, not so much a fan. But you put something out on Trump, you get something where people just love him. They can't explain it. They can't really say what it is he's doing, but they love him. And there's people that hate him, sometimes for reasons, sometimes because he's just a big orange man. That's what we have right here. No one can really tell what the actual problem is, but they know they hate healthcare workers. They know they have healthcare CEOs, and they have healthcare administrators and big time people who run insurance companies, because they see it as a big grift that are taken from the little man in themselves. And so they know they hate this guy initially because of what he is and what he does. So because of that, they love the guy that took him out. It wasn't a fair fight. We don't even know what the deal is. We're not sure if this is some sort of weird movie plot where he was coming in to avenge a loved one who was treated poorly. So he had this plan to get back at the guy. Or the really big rumors are Thompson was dealing with all these things that were just so crazy and he wasn't going to get out of it. So he hired a hitman himself. This guy was hired by Thompson to take him out. So it was the easiest way to escape from whatever problems he had. That's a bit of a stretch. The whole situation is a lot of a stretch. And so we just have to kind of go with that one. What are your thoughts on the coverage of the story? The story is pretty simple. A man was killed, gunned down in broad daylight at 5:45 in the morning in New York City, 6:45 in the morning in New York City, in front of people just walking to work, going to whatever, as he was going to have an appearance. A very public knowledge. It was pretty obvious he was going to be in that area, walking back from his hotel to the venue to get started to get to work. And then this happens. And then the people chime in. And then the comments come in. And then the vitriol comes in. And it's not, what is wrong with all this crime in this city? It's literally, it could not have happened to a guy who deserved it even more. That's the consensus. Not by all, but the very vocal consensus via the internet on people who think that Brian Thompson got what he deserved and should have gotten more in the process. Let me know what you think about the entire thing, the story. It's a story that's captivating us all, and it's got us not talking so much about all the other things going on right now, including, as I'm speaking right now, as I'm recording this on Saturday morning, the 7th of December, Donald Trump in France, the not president, meeting with the current president of France, Macron, on basically getting a handle on how things are going. Well, France has its issues. We have our issues as well. And the guy who will be there for another 2 years and the guy who will be in there soon for 4 more years are sort of, laying the groundwork, getting the bromance back together. We're not talking about that, or not here. A lot of the coverage, a lot of the news today, now things going on, is the repeat of the knowledge we have so far of this guy who at this point essentially has escaped, because we have no new knowledge. Nothing's new. What do you think about the whole thing? You want to comment about the healthcare system? I have an idea where things are going, but go ahead. Let me know what you're saying that. You want to comment about crime in New York City or wherever you are? You want to talk about vigilante justice? It all is in the same vein. What do you think about this case here? It's the coverage. It's the vitriol. It's the people who are cheering for the guy with the gun because the guy who was gunned down is a bad guy. We just don't know it yet. Let me know in the comments. Email me at theconversationinbox@gmail.com. Let me know what we can do for more stories like this and more coverage from the Conversation Project.